Hello, I'm Patricia.
And I'm Katina, and welcome to the Worker Being YouTube channel.
So today we're going to talk about purpose and having a calling in your work. So there's some really interesting research about having a calling, right? So you can think about people that maybe you're one of these people, but if you aren't, you can think about people that say that they're answering their calling, right? They've meant to be a teacher, they're meant to be a doctor. These are the areas and things that they think they're supposed to be doing with their life, and they're super passionate about it and excited about work all the time. And that is answering your calling, being able to do the thing that you feel called to do, that is part of who you are and part of your purpose in life. And there's a lot of benefits in terms of being a person that is answering their calling. So someone that is doing the work that they think they're meant to be doing, they tend to feel better about their lives, they're more satisfied in their lives, their well-being is higher, and obviously they're more excited about the work that they're doing. So there's a lot of really good things about answering a calling if you feel like you have one.
Yeah, and on the kind of flip side of that, if you're listening to this and thinking, well, I don't think I've ever felt like I had a calling. Maybe I like my job, or I see my job as a means to an end. Like, I work in this job so that I get to do other things that I enjoy. That's also fine. So there are some people who don't feel like they have a calling. The people who have the most kind of happiness and enjoyment in life are people who have a calling and are fulfilling that calling. But also folks that don't have a calling, they fare pretty well too. So if you're listening to this and thinking, I don't feel like I have a calling, it's not the end of the world. That's actually like the second best thing to having a calling and fulfilling it, is feeling like you don't have a calling, but that's okay with you. You're fine with the idea that your work is just something that you do for another purpose, or something that you don't feel as connected to. That's okay. But there is a category that's not so great, which is if you're listening to this and feeling like you have a calling, but you're not fulfilling it.
Yeah, so if you are a person that feels like really drawn to a specific type of work, or think you should be, helping animals or doing something differently than what you're doing today, you're the person that's going to be feeling the worst off. Unfortunately, your well-being is going to be lower. You're not going to be satisfied in your life because you feel drawn to doing a certain thing, but you're not actually able to satisfy that calling and to answer it and to do what you need to do. And it could be work related, but I think it's also important to note that sometimes your calling might be something else, right? It could be that you really feel strongly about having a family, and that's your calling, and that's okay too, right? Whatever your calling is, it's the idea of satisfying that calling and doing the thing that you feel like is part of your goal in life, your purpose in life. And if you're not able to satisfy that, today, then you're going to be in a place where you're struggling a little bit more. So we have a few tips and things to think about if you aren't answering your calling today. Like, what can you do to help yourself get to a place where you feel more satisfied and you feel like you're getting closer to what that calling is? I mean, the obvious answer is change jobs, change careers, figure out how you can get down the path that's directly related to what you want to do. So yes, obvious answer, that is something you could do, but that's really hard to do, especially if you're, been in your career for a while, you have a family, you've got a lot of responsibilities, financially you need money from the job that you're in. So that can be really challenging, but if you have the ability to do that, that would be the number one suggestion, is go, shift, move towards the calling and see if you can answer it and satisfy that purpose that you're looking for.
Yeah, and one of the ways that you can try to get more of your calling into your life if you don't have the opportunity to actually switch jobs or roles, because we know that can be very challenging to do and that might not be a possibility, is to take the job that you're currently in and add some things to it that actually resonate more with your calling. So one of the things that you can do if you're in this situation is to actually look at the job that you're doing and say, okay, are there other opportunities in my organization or in my role to take on things that bring me that sense of meaning or purpose? So as an example, maybe your company has charitable efforts or philanthropic efforts that it participates in, and you haven't been involved in those, but part of your calling is that you really want to help others. You could take on more of a leadership role in those sorts of events or opportunities to get involved. And so that might help you to add something additional to your role where maybe what you're doing on the day-to-day basis is not fulfilling the calling, but you have this other outlet for your calling at work because you've sort of expanded the role that you're in to include those sorts of things. So if you really love, mentoring people, or you feel like that's your calling is to help others. You could think about, okay, maybe I'll take on some mentees in the workplace, and that will add to my role and enrich my day, so that when I have those little pockets of places where I'm fulfilling what I feel like is my calling, even though I might not formally have that opportunity in my role, I'm able to do those things and actually feel like I'm getting more of what I'm called to do, but I didn't have to switch my role. I just sort of thought about ways to enrich the role that I'm in.
Yeah, and similarly, there's this idea of emphasizing certain tasks too. So maybe in your role, in Katina's example, you're in a role where now you're adding in things that are more similar to what you're called to do and kind of helping satisfy that specific need and purpose for yourself. But there could also be things in your job that you really like and are already focused on that. So let's just say you're a leader of a team and you don't really love the content area of what's going on within the organization. Maybe you're, I don't know, leading a project management team and you don't feel like project management is your calling. But as Katina mentioned, maybe mentoring is your calling and you're already in a leadership role. So you already have employees that you could be guiding and developing and moving them into the careers that they want. So focusing on the tasks that are related to your calling can be another way to help you feel more satisfied. So really thinking about your job holistically and figuring out what are the tasks that align with what you need and your purpose, and how can you make that more of your job, and how can you focus on those tasks throughout your day more often, so that you're able to kind of put your energy into the areas of your job that actually are related to your calling.
Yeah, and sort of thinking about the whole job differently. So you can think about your tasks differently. You can add tasks, but when you think about your role, a third way is to change the way that you actually think about the role that you're doing. So there's some really fascinating work out there on job crafting, which looks at how people actually think about their role and sort of change their role to fit the meaning or purpose that they're looking for. And so a famous study on this looked at people who were janitorial staff in a hospital. And some of the janitorial staff in the hospital thought of their jobs as, being really rote, and they have to do a lot of really gross stuff, right? On a regular basis. And so they felt really like their job was not meaningful, not purposeful, and they felt kind of grossed out by their job. But other people felt like, well, we're really crucial to this hospital because part of what we do is make patients comfortable and make sure that they're in a clean environment. And if they and their families have to be spending a lot of time here and they're struggling obviously with health challenges, isn't it nice to have a clean room and to have to feel taken care of and to feel like you're clean and that your family member is in a cleanly space? And so the way they thought about it was we're an integral part of making this hospital a caring, loving place for people to come. And so that's a way of an example of a way of reframing your role. So what is your purpose? What is your calling? And what does your role do to actually contribute to that? So just flipping your mindset around about how you think about your role can sometimes help you to feel more connected to your purpose and meaning as well.
Yeah, our minds are very powerful. So being able to change and shift your mindset can really help you feel more satisfied and get you to that state of well-being, because you're now answering your calling, or you feel like you're at least moving in that direction and contributing to the calling that you have and the purpose that you have. And then the final thing is, I mentioned maybe your purpose is not work related, but even if it is work related, maybe there's other things you can do outside of work to move you towards your purpose. So maybe it's volunteer work. You're really passionate about helping animals, and maybe you don't want to go back to vet school or what have you, but you want to volunteer on the side and work at an animal shelter, or, any other kind of things you can add on the side. So any type of volunteerism or, side projects and things like that can also help you feel like you're fulfilling your purpose. Obviously, ideally, it'd be nice to have that be within your job, but thinking about your life holistically and what are the things that you're doing to move towards that purpose is also important. So that could be another way to get you feeling like you're answering your calling, even if you're not seeing that in your specific job at this moment.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, there's a lot of tips, and one obviously, as we said, is changing job roles, but outside of that, there's a bunch of stuff that we just gave you that you can do. So if you feel like your calling is calling, you should answer it, because otherwise you'll be less happy and healthy. But there are multiple ways that you might do that, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to leave your job role. So hopefully this is helpful. If you feel like you have a calling, but you've kind of not been getting a lot of connection to that calling, in finding ways to sort of get connected and be able to enjoy more of the benefits of fulfilling your purpose.
Yeah, and like with everything, there's put intent behind it. Take that time to figure out, how to achieve your calling, and then put the effort in there, and you're going to feel a lot better. So instead of just kind of rolling around, not without your purpose, knowing you have a purpose, but just kind of moving forward in a steady state, status quo, take the tips here and think about what you can implement to help yourself and make yourself feel better as you're answering your calling. So thank you so much for watching. Hope these tips are helpful. Leave us some comments if you have any questions or feedback, and we'll see you next time.